This is Sylvia Shults, author of Fractured Spirits, Hauntings at the Peoria State Hospital. And you are listening to the 25th Hour radio show with Rob and Randy.
The 25th Hour radio show.
Sylvia, what came first, your enthusiasm for writing or your enthusiasm for the paranormal?
Oh, man, it would have to be the enthusiasm for the paranormal. I have been fascinated with ghost stories ever since I was a little kid. And I've always loved ghost stories. I've always sought out ghost stories. And it wasn't until I'd been writing for many years that I was asked to write a book of ghost stories and was able to, write ghost stories of my own.
Well, what was your first experience with what you would consider a ghost?
Oh, the very first experience I had was I was at the Peoria Players Theater. And I was doing research for my book, Ghosts of the Illinois River. And I went there to do some research, and I called up the theater and said, hey, I understand you guys have a ghost. And some people are kind of leery about talking about their ghosts, but the people at the theater are wonderful about it. They're like, yeah, we've got a ghost. His name's Norman. And they told me all about him, and they said, well, come on in and check it out. So I went there and didn't have any equipment with me or anything, so I just spoke out loud to the empty air. I said, Norman, hi, this is who I am. I'm writing a book, and I would love to be able to tell my readers that you're here, that you exist. But I don't have any weird equipment. I don't have any recorder with me. I don't have any cameras. You're going to have to make a noise for me or move something or do something to let me know that you're here.
Oh, boy.
And absolutely nothing happened. And I noticed that there was a child's desk sitting next to the backstage door, and there was a cup. There was a stack of little plastic shot glasses, like for mixing paint, for the painting for the theater. So I took the top shot glass, off of the stack, and I put it in the middle of the floor in the backstage area. And I said, all right, Norman, if you're here, would you please move the cup for me? Move the shot glass for me. And absolutely nothing happened. About that time, one of the volunteers for the theater came and introduced herself to me and gave me kind of a tour and everything. And we ended up back in the backstage area after we had done our tour. And I said, all right, Norman, I've got to go. I've got to leave. And if you want to let me know that you're here, you got to make a noise. And we did hear a noise. And I said, oh, thank you, Norman, that's wonderful, that's great. And because I was raised properly and raised to put things back where I found them, I picked up the glass that I had asked him to move, and I went to put it back on top of the stack of cups, and the stack of cups was gone.
Uh-oh.
And I asked the volunteer, she and I were the only people in the theater, and I asked the volunteer, I said, did you move that stack of cups that was sitting here? And she started giggling, and she said, no. I said, all right, fine. So, and she did tell me that that's what Norman likes to do. Norman's a trickster. He likes to move things. And I told her about the experiment I set up, and we both were just howling with laughter. And she said, well, to be fair, he did move the cups. He just didn't move the cup that you asked him to. He moved the entire stack, and it never did show up.
Now, when things like this happen to you, now you said you giggled with your buddy or whatever, your acquaintance there. To me, I would have been, I don't know, for lack of better words, soiling my pants.
No, I think it's wonderful. I think it's fabulous that the spirits can find ways to communicate with us.
I would have laughed. I would have laughed.
I had somebody holding my hand in the basement of one of the buildings at the asylum.
Like a spirit? A spirit?
Yes.
Holding
yes,
holding your hand now. Talk
holding my
about
hand.
that a little bit. What was that? What was that like?
Now we're talking about your Peoria State Mental Hospital experience.
Yes, exactly. It was in the basement of the Pollock Hospital, which is part of the Peoria State Hospital. The Pollock building was the TB ward. It was open from 1950 to 1973 when the hospital closed, when the entire asylum closed. And during that period of time, there were 3 to 5 deaths a week at this TB ward. So the Pollock Hospital is crawling with ghosts. There is a lot of activity there. And one of the most active parts of the building is the basement. And I was down there with
Now, wouldn't you know it?
people.
It's always the basement, the scariest part of the building.
I know, it always ends up being the basement. I don't know why this is. The basement of the Bowen building is also very active. A different building in the asylum. It's just a thing, I guess.
So was this intentional or unintentional? Did you use some kind of triggering device or just?
We were using a ghost box. Actually, going back to the basement thing, in the basement of each of those buildings there is a morgue.
Oh,
so I don't know if that has something to do with it, but they kept the bodies down there for.
What time of day was this?
Building.
What time of day was this? What time of day was this that you were doing this?
Oh, this is very late at night. This is around midnight.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, you're already not.
Yes, haunted morgue in the basement at midnight. Yes, sir. I go to those kind of places so that my readers don't have to. They can stay safe and warm in their armchairs. They can read about it, and I'm the one who has to go and actually have the experiences and write about them, which is fine with me. The Bowen building was the nurses' school for the asylum, so they did conduct autopsies in the morgue. And then the morgue in the basement of the Pollock building, there were so many deaths from TB that they needed a place to store the bodies, and the basement was a nice, cool place to store the bodies until either they were buried or until their families came to claim them.
Okay. Well, that's crazy. So
that explains the whole basement thing.
I want to ask you something. Why did you choose the Peoria State Mental Hospital as your choice to focus on for your book, Fractured Spirits?
Well, that's a fabulous question. I was talking with a bookstore manager, and she and I had been chatting about Bartonville and about the asylum, and I had known ever since I moved to this area that there was a haunted asylum around, and there have been 2 books written about the history of the asylum, and the bookstore manager said, we can't keep these books on the shelf. She said, we order 100 copies at a time, and they sell out like nothing. And people are really interested in the history of it as well. And every ghost story book about the Peoria area worth its salt will mention the asylum as being a very, very haunted place. And the manager said, I don't think anyone's gone through and collected all of these experiences that people have had out of the asylum. And I said, I don't think they ever have. She said, you should write that book. And so I said, by God, I will.
Now, when you do this, do you have to get permission to go into these places? Are you alone, or do you have a team with you?
I have a team with me. I have gotten very close with the people that take care of the Pollock building. That's where I spend most of my time. I have worked with the group that owns the Bowen building as well. Those are the only 2 buildings of the asylum that are really kind of in the state in which they were when the asylum closed. They are 2 of the original asylum buildings. There were 65 buildings on the hilltop. 13 of them still remain that haven't been destroyed or demolished. Most of those buildings are used for other businesses. There's one of the cottages was turned into a dentist's office. The entertainment center was turned into a bar, a country music bar. And there's another building was taken over and it's now used as a restaurant. But so people have had experiences in those buildings, and I mainly relied on people telling me their stories. for stories about those buildings.
Now, do you write the story as you're doing the research, or do you do all the field research and then write the story?
I take a bunch of notes, and I carry a recorder around with me to get the details, and then I go home and write it all up. And that was part of the interesting part of writing the book, was I had this huge notebook full of all sorts of stories, and then I had to go back and say, all right, now how in the world do I make this into a coherent book?
Now, how many
times?
I
divided it up in sections.
How long did this take? How long did this book take to write?
About a year and a half.
And
I've been researching it and going out and having experiences and collecting stories since about June of last year.
Now, how many times would you say that you visited the hospital?
Oh, I don't know, about dozens of times.
More than a handful, let's say, huh?
Yeah,
well,
more than a handful.
I was getting at,
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, why I asked that question was, do you get like activity every time you go there, or is there some nights it's a dud?
Yes, I have come away with a story every single time that I've gone there. Whether I'm in the cemeteries, whether I'm at the Bowen Building, whether I'm at the Pollock. The Pollock is the best place to collect experiences and collect stories. Something always happens at the Pollock Building.
Since the book's finished, have you been back since?
Oh yes, absolutely. There's something about that entire hilltop that just draws people back to it. And I'm happy to fall under its spell. It's just a really wonderful place. And I know that people aren't going to stop having experiences just because I type the end. So I have actually set up a Fractured Spirits fan page on Facebook. And people can go to the Facebook page and post their experiences, post the photos that they've taken, any EVPs that they want to share with people. That's the place to do it, and that's the place to go to discuss the experience that you have.
I'm absolutely fascinated with EVPs.
Oh gosh,
you brought that up. Yeah, you brought that up. So you touched something there. What have you found in Peoria State Mental, and what have you found anywhere? As far as EVPs, like what's the best one you've ever found or heard?
Oh man, I have so many good EVP stories. It's hard to choose a favorite. Well, all right. I'll tell you the really great ones that we've gotten at the hospital, and then remind me, I'll come back to one of my favorite just anywhere. One of the best EVPs I've collected at the Peoria State Hospital was an absolute accident. I was not looking for this to happen at all. I mentioned that I walk around with a recorder sometimes. There was a get-together at the Bowen Building the first weekend in October 2011. And what they had done was, at that point in time, you couldn't get into the Bowen Building because of the asbestos. The asbestos has now been abated. You can now go in and take tours and have experiences. But at that time, nobody was allowed in the building. So what they did was they said, come on over anyway, and you can explore around the outside of the building, and you can also explore in the 3 cemeteries. And they had 200 people show up. So they divided those 200 people into 4 groups, which rotated between the Bowen Building and the 3 cemeteries. And during that weekend, there was also a haunted house going on at the Pollock Building, which is a block away. So that little corner of Bartonville was just swarming with people. There were a lot of people running around. So that sets the scene. I was at the Bowen Building, had my recorder going. I was obviously doing research for something. I had my recorder, I had my little notebook with me. So I decided to just stay there and let people come to me rather than chasing after everybody. So I'm standing there and I'm talking with the owner's daughter, Trish Weiss. I'm talking with another woman, and we were standing around having a conversation. And it was just the 3 of us at that point, just 3 females standing around talking, having a conversation. And we were saying things like, have a safe trip, it was good to see you, drive safely on your way home. And underneath this conversation, if you listen to the recording, and I have it posted on the Facebook page so you can listen to it, underneath these 3 female voices talking, you can hear a male voice, very fretful and very concerned, saying, "There's too many people here. There's too many people here."
Mm.
I was just listening to the recording, just taking notes, and I heard that came through my jaw, just hit the table. I had no idea that was even on there.
See, now, if I were to play that to my wife or something, you know, that recorder would have been out in the yard, broken to a million different pieces.
No, it was great. I could just picture some poor guy standing there in a hospital robe, just wringing his hands in consternation, going, "There's too many people here. There's too many people." Getting
exactly.
Really upset, and I felt bad.
That's exactly what I'm thinking too. That's what
I
scared me.
felt bad for him.
What if we play this interview back and that guy's talking?
I don't know if that would happen since we're not at the asylum, but I'll tell you what, the Save the Bowen group, the group that owns the Bowen building right now, had a reunion a couple years ago of former employees of the asylum, and they invited them all back for a reunion, just to talk about the place, just to visit the place, see what had happened to it. And they did interviews. They had a recorder going, had a video recorder set up, and they did interviews for a couple hours of former patients, former nurses, former employees. And on that 2-hour tape, there are over 4,000 EVPs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. That is insane.
Just wandering past and putting their 2 cents in.
I mean, what do you do with that? Do you just keep that, or do you try to share that with paranormal researchers or anything? I mean, what do you do with that
I have shared it with a couple of paranormal researchers. There's a show called Paranormal Cops, I think. A couple of Chicago cops that go around investigating and whatnot. And I shared it with them, and they were pretty impressed by it.
Now, have any of these big shows come down to check out the hospital there?
Yeah. Yes. Rocky Foreman and his group.
Like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures or anybody like that?
Ghost Adventures hasn't been there, but TAPS was just recently at the Bowen building.
Oh, wow.
And I would love to get them to investigate the Pollock building, too. But TAPS has been to the Bowen a couple of times. They were just there about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And that show is going to air sometime between January and March, they tell me.
I'd like to see that. I'd be very interested to watch.
I hope so. I was interviewed for that show, so I hope I make it onto the TAPS. I hope I make it onto the Ghost Hunter show.
Have you ever found yourself thinking, maybe I shouldn't be messing around with the supernatural like I am?
You know, I've had people ask me that before. My sister, who is very, very dear to me and whose opinion I respect, absolutely cannot fathom why I do this. She said, it's like ringing a doorbell and playing Ding Dong Bitch. it's like ringing a doorbell and then just running away. You don't know what's going to come out of the door. But I approach investigation with respect. I don't try to antagonize anybody. I don't provoke. I just announce when I'm doing my research and investigation. I just say right from the get-go, I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm not here to antagonize anybody. I just want to communicate with you, and would you please come out and speak with me?
Yeah, I understand that completely, but there's got to be bad people still out. Bad ghosts.
Oh yeah. There are a couple of nasty entities down in the basement of the Pollock. Oh. At least one, and nasty entity down in the basement of the Pollock. He's got a horribly foul mouth, and there are some investigators in particular that he does not like at all. And I won't. This is a radio show, so I won't repeat any of the stuff that he says.
What's the best piece of evidence that you've gotten for a ghost ever?
Ever.
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 I mean, they're all every one of the pieces of evidence that you've told us so far is pretty dang good.
Well, thank you. Well, one of the best experiences I've ever had. My team, Research in Paranormal, or RIP, we have collected some pretty good evidence, pretty good photographic evidence. One of my team members, Sherry, is very, very talented at having the camera in the right place at the right time. And she has captured a really spectacular photograph of a woman standing in a doorway. This was not at the asylum. This was at the Old Bailey House in Macomb, Illinois. And that's a really, really neat photograph. If you want to see that, go to RIPIllinois, RIPIllinois.org.
Could you make out features of her or tell what kind of time
you
period
can't
she's
see
from?
the face. You can't see the face. The woman is, you can see the back of the woman, but you can see her, let's see, it would be her left shoulder and her elbow and the skirt. And the photo is so detailed you can very nearly make out the pattern of the cloth used the skirt. It's really, really fine. The other really compelling evidence that I got, I told you somebody was holding my hand in the basement of the Pollock building. This is the experience that I had that I could say to my own satisfaction, I was touched. Something really, really happened, and it was so much less frightening than I thought it was going to be. It was really fascinating. I was downstairs with Peoria Paranormal, and we were using a ghost box. And Derek was there, which is why I thought, oh, hey, I'll go down there and join them, because, like I said, there's that entity in the basement that really doesn't like Derek, so whenever a ghost box is involved, Seth is sure to show up and turn the air blue, just, swearing at Derek. So I thought, hey, ghost box plus Derek in the basement is a practical guarantee of good times. So I went down there, and we're standing around in a circle. The ghost box is on the floor, and about 8 of us standing around in a circle. And it was April. And so it was pretty chilly down in the basement. And I was standing there, I was holding my recorder in my right hand, and my left hand was just sort of hanging at my side. And I realized that the fingers of my left hand were starting to get warm. And it was just my fingers. It never reached as far as my palm, but the feeling was kind of tentative at first. But then after a while, it was really noticeable. And I mentioned something. I said, hey, what in the world is going on here? We had a sensitive with us. I said, would you come over here, please, and tell me what's going on? And the feeling of warmth was so noticeable after a while. It was like holding my fingers to the gently glowing coals of a campfire. It was really pleasant, and it was really noticeable. Stacy came over and stood next to me and concentrated, and she said, yeah, there's somebody holding your hand. And she said, you've got a fan. And the ghost box yelped, yes. And we asked them what their name was, and the ghost box said Christopher. And somebody behind me said, well, all this guy wants is to be in your book. And Stacy concentrated for a minute and said, well, actually, that's exactly what he wants. And a different sensitive later on told me that Christopher, she said he's tall, dark, and handsome. He's young. He's mid-20s or so. And she said he likes you. He likes you a lot. You remind him of somebody that he once loved.
How does your husband feel about that? When you come home, you come home. Now, your husband's name's Rob, right?
He does, yes. His name is Rob.
So when you
absolutely, he does not believe in this sort of ghost nonsense. He said everybody needs a hobby. You can go out as late as you want. You can stay out as late as you want. I don't mind. Have fun. I don't believe in this sort of thing. And he went so far as to kind of make fun of me a little bit. He got a hold of my voice recorder, and he did a little thing where he's going dinosaur hunting. And for a trigger object, he's going to use a bucket of chum. And we're going to sit here, we're going to sip our coffee in Starbucks, and we're going to wait for a dinosaur to show up. Because we've heard they're around. We just need to get some evidence.
Well, the ghost, no one's ever, I think, I've never heard of anybody trying to get a dinosaur ghost.
So yeah, he told me once, he said, there is more evidence for dinosaurs than there is for ghosts. So you would be better off going dinosaur hunting.
How about Ouija boards? Seances, psychics, do you use any of them or believe in them?
I think Ouija boards are very dangerous. I think that it's very possible to let something in that you have no idea how to control. So I stay away from Ouija boards. I am fascinated with mediums and psychics. I do not have any ability that direction at all. I am really fascinated with people who are sensitive, that can feel things like that. I'm even more fascinated with the people that say that they can see things, because I just can't. I just have to rely on what they're telling me.
So let's talk about, and I don't want to change the subject if you don't want to, but let's I want to change the subject. Let's talk about some of your other writings. Let's talk about some of your other stuff. I mean, because you have a wide range of stuff that you've done.
I do, yes. I write horror and romance.
Let's talk about your book series.
5 lines separating the two.
Your short story series, the Dark at the Heart of the Diamond. You tell us about some of the stories in those.
Oh, well, that's a bunch of short stories, horror short stories that I have. Some of them were written 15 years ago. Some of them were written within the past couple of months, and I just collected them all and put them all in one place, really.
Do you think this is the kind of thing that you'll do for the rest of your career? This is your career. Am I?
Yes. Yes.
You will be going out at midnight, going in basements into cemeteries for the rest of your career. That's what you're telling me.
Yes, because it's
and you choose to do this. No one's making you do this.
No one's making me do it at all. But I'll tell you what, there is so much activity at the Peoria State Hospital that if I was restricted to one haunted site the rest of my life, I would happily restrict myself to the Peoria State Hospital. There is that much activity there. There is that much going on. And I could spend the rest of my life just studying that hospital and its ghosts.
Do you and I know we're running short on time, but I want to ask you something. Do you ever feel like, and I've heard other paranormal researchers say this, do you ever feel like anything has ever followed you home?
Oh, gosh, no. No, I am about as sensitive as a dining room table when it comes to the supernatural and the paranormal. So if anything did follow me home, somebody could be walking around behind me carrying their own severed head, and I wouldn't notice. So if anything did follow me home, it would leave after a couple of weeks because it would be so bored because I wouldn't acknowledge it. It would say, heck with this, and it would go back to wherever it came from. Well, I'll tell you about my one of my best EVPs.
Okay, go ahead.
This again happened at Macomb. And my team was out there, Research and Paranormal was out there, and we were at the Little Stitches sewing shop in Macomb. And we were running around, lights out, just having a blast. And Sherry with the photographs, and I were in the back room, and our guide said, well, hold on a second, I think I heard some hangers rattling, and let's take some pictures. So Sherry's standing there taking pictures, and I'm standing there with a recorder going and a flashlight in my other hand. And all of a sudden, from right next to me, right to my left, I hear somebody fart.
That's awesome evidence.
And it's not some pants-shredding blast or anything like that. It's just this pretty polite little... Now, I have the sense of humor of a 10-year-old boy.
So wait a minute. So, hold on. Let me get this straight here. You heard a ghost fart.
Yeah. So
okay. Oh wait. Okay. Hold on. I'm not done.
Reaction.
I'm not done here.
Reaction is somebody cut the cheese.
What did it smell like?
Well, I didn't smell anything at the time. So we decided to rejoin the rest of the group. So I turned on my flashlight, and just out of pure curiosity, I'd swing the flashlight to my left to see who it was that cut the cheese. I thought it was another investigator. But that's when I realized that not only was no one standing next to me, I was standing next to a solid wall. I said, oh, okay, I think people need to know about this. So we rejoined the rest of the group, and I said, all right, I know everyone's going to laugh at me for this, but this is what I heard. And everyone's just rolling on the floor laughing. Oh, right, you heard a ghost fart, whatever. So I said, I stand by what I heard. This is my experience. This is what I stand by. So we had a tech person who took the DVR at the end of the evening, and that was Saturday night. And Sunday morning, she texted me, and she said, I found your ghost part on the tape. I said, I told you so.
Now, you sure that wasn't you? The one who smelt it, dealt it.
That was Sunday morning, and Sunday afternoon, she sent me an email, and she wasn't laughing quite so hard.
Uh-oh.
She said, you have to listen to this. And she sent me 2 sound files. She sent me the original. I played it. Poop. And she sent me a file that she had slowed down 300%. And what I heard was, hello?
Oh, man. So they were actually talking instead of Putin.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's crazy.
That was really astounding.
You were way off at first.
yeah, I was.
Well, we're almost out of time, but we want to make sure that we plug everything you have out right at the moment. Can you tell our listeners about your Facebook page? I know you said it before, but let's go over it again. Facebook pages, Twitters, or anything, any kind of social media that you have. Okay,
well, I am on Facebook. I have several Facebook fan pages. The most important one is facebook.com/fractured spirits. That's where you're going to find all sorts of photographs, all sorts of EVPs. And the neat thing about Fractured Spirits, the book, is that it is interactive. When you read the book, you're going to find a little ghosty icon. Whenever I mention an EVP or whenever I mention a photograph in the book, you're going to see a little ghosty icon next to that page in the book, next to that paragraph in the book. And that's your cue that you can go onto the Facebook website at the Fractured Spirits Facebook page, and you can listen to that EVP.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. It's interactive.
Yeah, that's really neat. So there's that, Fractured Spirits. I also have a couple of other Facebook fan pages for my other writing. Dark Heart is for my horror writing, and Sparkle Heart is for my romance. I do have a humorous romance coming out January 15th, and it is set in Salem, Massachusetts. There's the heroine is a practicing Wiccan, and the hero is a ghost hunter, a producer from a ghost hunting show that comes to town, and they meet and sparks fly, and that is called Double Double Love and Trouble. And Fractured Spirits, Hauntings at the Peoria State Hospital will be released February 5th, 2013.
Well, Sylvia, thank you very much for being on our show. It's been a pleasure. We had a great time talking to you, and I hope you enjoyed your time here with us.
I absolutely had a blast. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.